Gotta see this video. I cannot believe what's going on. Steve Harvey is still at it again behind the scenes. When I tell you that witch that he's married to, I'm telling y'all, she's doing some type of voodoo or spell or something, okay? To make a black man put her kids before his own biological kids, that is just something to be studied. But Katt Williams, he called it out. He told it like it is. Now Steve Harvey is not only going after Diddy, because recently Steve Harvey did an interview and talked about Diddy. Behind the scenes, Steve Harvey is dragging Katt Williams, okay? And he hasn't forgave Katt Williams for talking about Marjorie Harvey, okay? So they saying that Steve Harvey feel like he's getting a lot of power behind the scenes in Hollywood, and they are definitely coming for Katt Williams. It's the reason why Katt Williams made up with Kevin Hart doing that roast. On that roast, they did a humiliation ritual. And, look at the times, look at everything. Something is going on. Something is brewing. And did you guys know Trump is now over CNN? Trump, close friend, is now owning CNN. They are taking over all the media stations, okay? I kid you not. I need you guys to watch this video and let me know your thoughts, okay?
Finally realized, okay, I got to say something. He was like, oh, I'm sorry. I don't know who this is, but I'm going to marry her. I met Steve. He was already married. And you walk in late to his show. Late. You walked in late for a reason, for the attention. Not even knowing you. He said, I'm going to marry you. Girl, who you don't call? Oshun, Ugly Freda?
If you sign up for their program, you get a light-skinned, weird-faced wife that never do an interview. Listen, in 20 years, won't do an interview.
I had a chance to talk to Katt about anything, I would just ask him what's wrong. Just what's wrong.
So Steve Harvey really thought it was bold to toss some tired, recycled shade at Katt Williams again. And now, Katt is firing back, dragging Steve's wife Marjorie straight into the spotlight with some wild claims. And honestly, the way Katt tells it, it almost sounds believable. He's saying Marjorie is the one calling all the shots behind the scenes, like a mastermind, pulling every move. According to him, she keeps Steve wrapped around her finger and is even guiding her daughter Lori in how to maintain that flashy lifestyle through relationships. Katt also hints that Steve keeps speaking on him because Marjorie is pushing it, claiming she's still upset about that contract Katt exposed before. Allegedly, that deal was tied to Steve securing a very specific image for himself, including his relationship. Now, Katt's painting this picture of Steve throwing shade while being completely influenced, almost like he's being controlled. So what's really going on here? Is Marjorie truly this behind-the-scenes strategist making every move, or is this all just exaggerated drama turning into something bigger than it really is?
Media fodder was upset with you for the way you finally responded to him. Mm-hmm. They said they felt like what he said about you was true because of the nature of your reaction.
Oh, well, see, first of all, I ain't really good at social media, so I didn't even know that was out there. But they can, really kiss most of the corners of my ass. Just because a person sits on the show and don't hesitate or say, or ah, and speaks eloquently, that don't mean it's true. It just don't mean it's true.
It's been over 2 years since Katt Williams' legendary Club Shay Shay interview, and somehow Steve Harvey is still stuck on it. When that interview first went viral, Steve even threw out a wild threat saying he'd shoot his perm straight out of his head. So clearly, Katt hit a nerve back then, no question about it. But now, fast forward 2 whole years, and Steve is still bringing it up like it just happened yesterday. During his recent appearance on the Pivot podcast, Steve took another shot at Katt, claiming Katt is just jealous and bad complaints because he's not on the same level. But wait a minute, if Steve really believes Katt is just jealous, then why did he react so strongly in the first place? That kind of response has people raising eyebrows and asking questions. And this is where Marjorie's name starts getting pulled into the mix, because according to someone said to be close to the Harvey family, it's actually Marjorie who's been influencing all of this behind the scenes. He went as far as publicly calling out Katt and making that intense threat, and people are still talking about it. Allegedly, all of this goes back to what Katt said about comedians needing to sign on to certain programs to make it big in the industry. And part of that claim included having a very specific type of partner to match a certain image. Then, Katt also stirred things up by bringing Steve's past into the conversation, pointing out how Steve left his first wife and later built a life with Marjorie, while now presenting the story in a completely different way. That contrast alone had people raising eyebrows. These days, Marjorie Harvey is all about that luxury life, showing off high-end fashion, private trips, and rubbing shoulders with major celebrities and billionaires. But according to the narrative being pushed, her life looked very different before she met Steve, far from the spotlight and glam.
Sign up for their program, you get a light-skinned, weird-faced wife that never do an interview. Listen, in 20 years, won't do an interview. Nobody's ever talked to her, and that she's never been interviewed anywhere. And now, understand, I'm not talking about one person. What I just told you applies to 7 people. How they all end up with that. That's part of what you get. I came in this business saying I was going to expose.
Then came that moment at a Memphis comedy club where their eyes met, and Steve has said it felt like destiny right away. From that point on, everything seemed to change, and now that story is being looked at from a whole new angle. They connected fast at first, no doubt about it, but after just a few weeks, Marjorie stepped away, and people say it was because Steve wasn't financially strong at the time. Now jump ahead to 2005, and suddenly they cross paths again. But this time, Steve has a hit sitcom and a whole new level of success. And just like that, Marjorie is ready to spin the block and give it another shot. But here's where things start to get really complicated. At that time, Steve was still married to his second wife, Mary Shackelford. And later on, Mary claimed that Steve had been involved with Marjorie before their divorce was officially finalized. That claim alone had people talking nonstop. And it doesn't stop there. Mary also shared her side of the story about their family situation, saying that after the split, Steve took custody of their son, Winton, and that the legal battle left her in a very difficult position financially. The whole situation turned into a serious back and forth, with each side telling a very different version of events. But according to what's being said, Steve wasn't the one calling every move. The talk is that Marjorie was the real strategist behind the scenes, mapping things out and convincing Steve to completely distance himself from his ex-wife. On top of that, there are claims that Marjorie pushed Steve to shape the public narrative in a certain way about Mary, and Steve went along with it. He started speaking out, calling Mary bitter and toxic, and even suggested she was causing issues within the family. It turned into a messy public situation, with strong accusations flying back and forth from different sides. Katt had already hinted that something like this might happen, and when it all unfolded, people definitely had opinions. Still, no matter how much the story was explained from Steve and Marjorie's perspective, not everyone was convinced, and Marjorie ended up facing a lot of public criticism during that time. But that's not even the most talked about part of her past. Before becoming Mrs. Harvey, Marjorie had already been married twice. One of her former husbands was reportedly involved in major street-level dealings, and rumors started spreading that her lifestyle back then may not have been as low-key as some people assumed.
Because we not in the same league, dog. We shooting at 2 different baskets. I shouldn't even have said nothing. I think that's kind of like hate and jealousy. And hate and jealousy is a form of grief. You're grieving because obviously all them people you talking about have something you either want or are something that you ain't. And you're grieving. And the funeral becomes the podcast. So now let me run.
Some sources even say federal authorities had their eyes on the situation and were pressuring for cooperation, suggesting there was serious evidence tied to illegal activity. It's all based on reports and rumors, but the story definitely raised a lot of eyebrows. Eventually, Jim agreed to cooperate with authorities, but he was still charged in connection with a major illegal transaction involving large amounts of substances. He received a life sentence and ended up serving 26 years before being granted clemency in 2017. Meanwhile, Marjorie was never charged and chose to file for divorce not long into his sentence, stepping away from that chapter of her life. But the drama doesn't stop there. After separating from Jim, Reports say Marjorie later got involved with his cousin, Donnell Woods, who also had his own controversies. He is known as Lori Harvey's biological father, and the two eventually married in the early 2000s. Now here's where the timeline really gets confusing. Steve and Marjorie have both said they first met in the late 90s, had a brief connection, then reunited in 2005. That overlap has some people to question how everything lined up, sparking even more speculation about what may have been going on behind the scenes at the time. Anyway, once Marjorie reconnected with Steve and saw his career was taking off, people say she quickly moved on from Donnell without hesitation. And Donnell's story also took a serious turn, as he was later arrested, faced charges, and only recently returned home after serving time. Then, in June 2007, Steve and Marjorie officially got married, blending their families together. Steve adopted her 3 kids, Morgan, Jason, and Lori, while also bringing his 4 biological children into the mix. On the outside, it looked like this big, successful, blended family living the dream.
Thanks to my wife, I'm where I am. You said that about the first wife. You forget that? You told us it was her. Then you went and married somebody else that think like a man. Like, what are you talking about? They think they can rewrite.
Fast forward to today, and the two often present themselves as relationship experts on TV, speaking on love, family, and unity like everything is picture perfect. But according to insiders, there's a very different story behind closed doors. One source even claimed there's serious tension in the household, saying things aren't nearly as smooth as they appear. The same source alleged that Marjorie is heavily focused on pushing Lori into the spotlight and encouraging her to date high-profile figures, while her other children don't get the same level of attention. They also claim Marjorie runs the household completely and is guiding Lori on how to navigate relationships in that world. And now, more talk is starting to surface involving Michael B. Jordan, adding yet another layer to this already complicated situation. And now the conversation is shifting toward Michael B. Jordan, and things are getting even more intense. Reports started circulating that his relationship with Lori didn't just end quietly, and some people are pointing fingers behind the scenes. According to what's being said, there was pressure building around settling down and taking things to the next level, but not everyone was on the same page. Some sources claim Michael wasn't ready for that kind of commitment, while others are hinting that outside influence may have played a role in how everything unfolded. Then, of course, the internet did what it always does and started connecting dots, with many suggesting that Lori's relationships follow a very strategic pattern. That idea has people debating nonstop, with some defending her choices and others questioning what's really going on behind the scenes. And with all this talk circling back to Marjorie's influence, it just keeps adding more fuel to the speculation. Is this all just coincidence, or is there really someone guiding every move from the background like people keep claiming?
Came late, came down front with my girlfriend. Our seats were right here at the front, right by the stage. So we were sitting here. The stage was here. So he's just quiet. He just keeps staring at me. So I'm waiting on him to make me a part of the show so we can get on with the show. So he stayed quiet so long, staring at me. Now everybody in the club is looking at me. And so he finally realized, okay, I got to say something. He was like, oh, I'm sorry. I don't know who this is, but I'm going to marry.
At this point, the whole situation has turned into a nonstop debate online, and everybody seems to have an opinion. Some people are backing Katt, saying he's been calling Bings out from the start, while others feel like this has all been blown way out of proportion. Then you got fans defending Steve and Marjorie, arguing that their success speaks for itself, and that people are just reaching for drama. They point to the empire Steve built, the shows, the business moves, and say there's no way he's being controlled by anyone. But on the flip side, critics keep digging into the past, bringing up old interviews, timelines, and stories that don't quite line up cleanly. That's what keeps this conversation alive, because every time it seems like it's fading, something new pops up and pulls everyone right back in. So now it's not just about one interview or one comment anymore. It's turned into this bigger story about power, influence, and what really goes on behind all that fame and luxury. And honestly, people don't look like they're done talking about it anytime soon. And now things are reaching a whole new level because more people are starting to question what's real, what's just carefully crafted image. Every interview, every post, every public appearance is being picked apart, with fans trying to read between the lines like never before. Some are even revisiting Katt's original claims, wondering if there was more truth to them than they first thought. Others are pushing back hard, saying this is exactly how rumors spiral when fame, money, and influence are involved. Meanwhile, Steve and Marjorie continue to present a polished front, showing unity, success, and that luxury lifestyle that keeps people watching. But the contrast between that image and all these behind-the-scenes claims is what's keeping the conversation alive and loud. At the end of the day, nobody outside that inner circle truly knows what's going on. But one thing is clear, this story isn't fading anytime soon, and every new detail just pulls more people deeper into the drama. And just when it feels like things might cool off, another layer gets added to the story. People are now questioning whether all this back and forth is actually helping everyone involved stay relevant, because every mention, every clip, every headline keeps the spotlight shining bright. Some are even saying this whole situation turned into a cycle, where one comment sparks another and then another, keeping the drama alive way longer than expected. And with Katt known for speaking boldly, and Steve not wanting to stay quiet either, it's like neither side is backing down anytime soon. At the same time, others are looking at the bigger picture, wondering if this is just how the entertainment world works behind the scenes. Big personalities, strong opinions, and complicated relationships all mixing together to create moments that people can't stop talking about.
I think about how quickly he moved forward from me to Marjorie. That was disturbing.
One thing's for sure, though, whether it's truth, exaggeration, or somewhere in between, this situation has people locked in, watching every move and waiting to see what gets said next. And now the biggest question people keep asking is simple. Where does this all go from here? Because at this point, it's not just about old interviews or past relationships anymore. It's about reputation, legacy, and who controls the narrative moving forward. Some fans are waiting to see if Katt is going to speak out again and drop even more claims, especially since every time he talks, the internet goes into a frenzy. Others are watching Steve closely, wondering if he'll respond again or just let things fade out on their own. Meanwhile, Marjorie's name continues to stay in the middle of the conversation, whether she addresses it or not. That silence alone has people speculating even more, trying to figure out what's really happening behind the scenes. At the same time, there's a growing group of people who are starting to question everything they see, realizing that not every headline tells the full story. But even with that doubt, the curiosity isn't slowing down, and this situation still has everyone watching closely for the next twist. And now the spotlight is shifting again because people are starting to ask who really benefits from all this attention. Every headline, every clip, every trending moment keeps these names circulating nonstop. And in the entertainment world, that kind of visibility is powerful. Some are saying this whole situation is taking on a life of its own, growing far beyond where it started. What began as one interview has turned into a long-running conversation filled with opinions, theories, and non-stop speculation. At the same time, others are pointing out how quickly narratives can form online, where a single claim can get repeated so often that it starts to feel like fact. That's why more viewers are trying to separate what's confirmed from what's just talk, even though that line keeps getting blurry. Still, whether people believe it or not, they're watching, sharing, and reacting every step of the way. And as long as that attention stays locked in, this story isn't going anywhere. It's only getting bigger with every new voice that jumps into the mix. And now we've reached the point where this whole situation feels bigger than the people involved. It's turned into a full-on conversation about image, influence, and how fast stories can spread when fame is attached to it. Some people are stepping back and saying this should be a reminder that not everything online is confirmed, no matter how convincing it sounds, because once a narrative catches momentum, it can be hard to separate real facts from exaggeration. Others, though, are still locked in on every detail, analyzing past clips, interviews, and timelines, trying to piece everything together like a puzzle that doesn't quite fit perfectly flat. That curiosity is what keeps this topic trending over and over again.
Careful in here is my wife and children had to be drugged into this. If you're going to be vindictive, then go ahead and just aim it at me. But my son is coming in the room quiet. And that's also personal. So why you would do this?
Meanwhile, Steve, Marjorie, and everyone connected to this story continue living their lives in the public eye, knowing every move could spark another round of headlines. And with that kind of pressure, even the smallest moment can turn into the next big talking point that keeps this drama going strong. And at this stage, it's clear this story isn't just fading away quietly. It's turned into one of those ongoing conversations that keeps resurfacing every time someone new adds their take or an old clip starts trending again. Some people are convinced there's more going on beneath the surface, while others are calling it a mix of rumors, opinions, and clever storytelling all blending together. That split is exactly what keeps the debate alive, because nobody seems to fully agree on what's real. What really stands out is how quickly things can evolve in the public eye, where a single comment can snowball into a much bigger narrative. And once that momentum builds, it's almost impossible to slow it down. So now, everyone's just watching to see what happens next, whether it's another response, a surprise reveal, or just more speculation taking over the conversation. Either way, this situation has locked people in, and it doesn't look like the attention is going anywhere anytime soon. And now, it feels like this whole situation has reached a point where the story is almost writing itself. Every new reaction, every repost, every small detail gets amplified and turned into something even bigger. Some people are starting to question whether the truth even matters anymore, or if it's all about which version of the story gains the most attention. Because once the internet locks in on a narrative, it can take on a life of its own and keep growing without slowing down. At the same time, others are pointing out that situations like this show just how powerful public perception really is. The way people interpret events, choose sides, and spread opinions can shape how everything is seen, regardless of what actually happened behind closed doors. One thing is certain, though, this isn't just a quick headline that came and went. It's become an ongoing conversation that keeps evolving. And as long as people stay curious, this story will keep finding new ways to stay in the spotlight. And now we're at the stage where people are starting to look at everything with a more critical eye. Instead of just reacting, more viewers are questioning the timing of events, the way stories are presented, and who might actually benefit from all this attention. Some are even suggesting that moments like this show how quickly entertainment and real life can blur together. One headline turns into 10, one opinion turns into a full debate, and before you know it, the story feels bigger than anything that actually started it. At the same time, there's still a huge audience that's fully invested, watching every update and waiting for someone to finally clear things up. Whether that happens or not is a whole different question, because not every situation gets a clean explanation.
I went and took my Winton from me. He turned my son against me, had me evicted from our house, thrown out, all the businesses, all the money, the cars. At a moment when I was down and devastated. He maneuvered everything. He maneuvered He manipulated the courts, everything against.
But one thing stands out more than anything. This conversation has staying power. As long as people keep talking, sharing, and speculating, it's going to keep evolving and pulling more attention with every new twist that pops up. And now we've hit the point where this whole story feels like it's bigger than any single claim or moment. It's turned into a non-stop cycle of reactions, opinions, and theories that just keep stacking up on top of each other. Some people are starting to tune out, saying it's all gotten too messy to even follow clearly anymore. But at the same time, others are even more locked in, trying to catch every detail and figure out what might actually be true. What really stands out is how fast things can shift in the public eye. One day it's quiet, the next day it's trending again, all because of one clip, one comment, or one rumor getting attention. And with so many eyes still watching, it doesn't take much to spark another wave of conversation. That's why this situation keeps circling back, growing louder each time, and proving that once a story like this takes off, it's not easy to slow it down. Jordan reportedly had doubts for Marjorie from the very beginning, feeling like no matter what he did for Lori, it just never measured up in her eyes. People started saying he was ready to take things to the next level and even considered a prenup, which honestly isn't unusual when big money's involved. But according to the rumors, that idea didn't sit well at all and quickly got shut down. There's also talk that Marjorie doesn't support prenups, and critics have a lot to say about that, especially considering the lifestyle she's known for. From there, speculation grew that Lori's breakup with Michael B. Jordan wasn't as simple as it looked, with some claiming outside influence played a role in that decision. Katt didn't hold back either, making strong statements and questioning the image people see versus what might really be happening behind the scenes. He suggested that everything is more strategic than it appears, sparking even more debate online about control, influence, and who's really making the calls. After all the stories, rumors, and past situations people keep bringing up, the big question still stands. Is Steve really leading his household, or is someone else pulling the strings behind closed doors? And what do you think about Katt's claims about how the industry works and the expectations tied to it? Make sure you drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and share this with someone who needs to see it.